What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another rookie profile video for you guys. Today, I will be doing another quarterback, Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. He's getting a lot of love, some hate, right? He's kind of a very divisive player in this draft class. Got a ton of upside, but definitely has some questions in his game, at least according to me, my opinion. I'm no quarterback scout, but I'm doing my best here for you guys. So, before we jump into that, though, guys, please, if you have time, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon if you guys don't mind. It'll let you know when any and all of our videos go live. We would appreciate it as we are continuing to try and grow this channel. We've got a ton more content coming for you guys. I promise you don't want to miss out on what's coming with a lot of the draft coverage and everything else. Again, Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. Very, very interesting player. He's a guy I was a little wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about him as I was going in and looking at some of his tape and everything. But let's dive into some of his stats, what he did throughout this past season in the pocket, like we have with all of the other quarterbacks. All right, so we're going to start it here with his 2021 stats. And as you can see here, kind of all over the board, which is kind of to be expected. I think it really does speak to his overall game. If this is your first time watching this, guys, or watching one of these videos, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of the stats that they had throughout his, or it's not they, I've done it for the other guys, but for Malik Willis here, what he did in his 2021 season, some advanced stats, and we'll kind of continue moving forward there. So completion percentage, 61.4%, which was 74th in college. Passing yards, just 2,859. Obviously, he is not just a passing quarterback, though. He does a lot with his legs as well, so that may seem a little bit light there on the 2,800. 2,800 passing yards, but he did add 878 yards rushing. So overall, a very good season when it comes to stats there. 878 over. So like just off the top of my head, 3,373, I believe. So 3,737 yards altogether. Really good season for him. 27 passing touchdowns, which was 18th in college. 40 big-time throws. 11% of his throws were big-time throws. And again, what is a big-time throw? That is almost, I don't want to say a game-changing play, but like a big third down, big fourth down play, big touchdown play. All those factor into big-time throws, and 40 of his throws, 11% big-time throws. That's pretty good, pretty good. As you can see, second in college, I believe only behind the one and only Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky, who's also in this draft class. But then you look at the other side there, an 18 turnover-worthy plays, 3.7%, 10th. So you want to be lower if possible. 10th is not great, but, it comes in with part of his game. He's a little bit, I don't want to say a gunslinger, but I definitely think there's a lot of tight window throws that Malik Willis doesn't think he can fit the ball into, so that I think does hurt him a little bit on the turnover-worthy play side. 11.28 out, 22nd in college. Adjusted completion percentage, 70.1, which was 90th in college. Time to throw, 3.3 seconds. That is third most in college. So he was given all day to throw by his offensive line. Some of that I think just goes into Liberty. Was not playing the best competition most of the year. They did play some upper competition teams like a Syracuse, Ole Miss. I have some of that tape in there. Played surprisingly good against Syracuse. Kind of struggled against Ole Miss. But regardless, was given a lot of time to throw. Granted, some of that I do think is on him as well with the way he's able to extend plays in the pocket and outside the pocket, the way he can make plays out of structure. So some of that on him, but some of that just shows how good his offensive line was for him, at least this year. And then obviously his QBR and EPA. I've talked about it every video. My analytics friends tell me that QBR and EPA are the most predictive when it comes to the NFL and them having success in it. So this year, 70.0, 8th out of the 10 draft eligible quarterbacks that most people are talking about. And then 182 on his EPA, which was 5th out of the draft eligible quarterbacks. So let's take a look at his deep passing. He's very well known for how good he is throwing the ball deep. 42.3 completion percentage, 38th in college. 1,033 passing yards, 19th. 12 touchdowns, which gets him 12th in college. 37 big-time throws deep. 44% of his deep throws were big-time throws. Incredible. Second in college football. 6 turnover-worthy plays, though, 7.1%. 14th. A-dot, 29.5. And I like to bring up the A-dot part. I do it every video. So deep throws are considered anything over 20 yards. So we saw early on when I did Desmond Ritter's, his was barely over that 20 mark. I think his was at like 23 point something. And then we saw guys like Sam Howell and Matt Corral, who I've also done, who had like 30 plus. 29.5 is really good. That means he's going almost 10 yards over that 20-yard mark, which is good and fun to see. 87th, though, in college. An adjusted completion percentage of 50.7, which finished as 23rd. Again, he is a very good deep passer. He's known for that. I have a couple of those on the film here that we'll look at, and as well as some misses, too, because I think, and you can see it right there, 42.3, 50 in the adjusted. He does struggle, I think, a little bit as well in throwing the deep pass, but he is very good at it. Here are his stats in the pocket for 2021. Sacked 0 times when in a clean pocket. So right there with Matt Corral on that, both Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell were sacked in clean pockets. So good to see that he wasn't getting sacked there. Passed for 2,346 yards, a 23-8 touchdown to interception ratio, 10-yard A-dot, adjusted completion percentage of 73.2. Passing under pressure. This is when anybody gets close to the quarterback, not just blitzes. This is kind of like whether it's, defender gets off the line well or maybe a misread by your offensive lineman, whatever it is, pressure on the quarterback. 30.5% of his pressures turned into sacks, which was 51 on the season. Did go 4-4 in the touchdown to interception ratio, 513 yards. Did have an 8 out of 16.3, though, which is kind of cool to see. And you'll see that because I think a lot of that is when he gets that pressure, he gets out of the pocket and is looking for a play downfield most of the time. Adjusted completion percentage of 56.7. And then when blitzed, you like to look at these stats when blitzed. A lot of the upper tier quarterbacks who can recognize blitzes and change the play at the line usually have very good stats here. So far out of everybody's, his are kind of the worst. They're right there with Desmond Ritter's, but I will also say that I don't know if that was really part of his game, so I don't want to judge him too much on the blitzing part, but 29.1% of the pressures turned into sacks, which was 23 when he was being blitzed. 61.5 completion percentage, a 71.5 adjusted completion percentage, 16-2 though touchdown to interception ratio with an 8 out of 10.4. I mean that's pretty good right there. Overall, I think very good when being blitzed, and again, his legs help him with that. So let's take a look at what he looks like compared to the rest in his class. This is career stats. The one thing you have to take into account with Willis is that he does not have as many games under his belt as some of these guys do. I mean, Desmond Ridder started 4 years, Sam Howell 3, Matt Corral 3. Malik Willis has really only been starting for 2 years. He was at Auburn, transferred to Liberty because he got beat out by Bo Nix. And some people will say, oh, hey, well, that should speak volumes about what Malik Willis is as a quarterback prospect. Never forget. I will never let you forget. Remember the 5th of November. Never forget that Kirby Smart chose Jake Fromm over Justin Fields. So just because Bo Nix got the job over Malik Willis does not mean Malik Willis is a bad quarterback. He finished his career with a 62.9 completion percentage, which was 8th in the class. 5,181 passing yards, 10th. YPA of 8.4, which was 6th, a 48-18 touchdown to interception ratio, which was 8th, 69 big-time throws, though, which finished 3rd. 37 turnover-worthy plays, finished 6th, 11.2 A-dot, which finished 2nd, 71.1 adjusted completion percentage, 10th. Okay, back to the time to throw, 3.2 seconds over his career. That was the most time out of everybody in this class. And then QBR is an average over the time he was a starting quarterback, 74.3, which finished 4th. And then EPA was all those years added together, 377, which finished 6th. All right, so that takes care of all of those. That's his stats, his 2021 pocket, deep passing, and his class stats. Let's take a look at some of the advanced stuff. All of these graphs here you can find at campustocanton.com. These are put together by the wonderful and amazing Jarek Backus. And as I've done in the other videos, we will compare the QBR, the EPA, and adjusted yards per play to his classmates, the 2022 class, and we'll go back a class, 2021, and then 2020. I love looking at 3 classes worth of stats here. So if you're looking on here, obviously, you don't even see his name pop up till you go to the year 4 column. That is because he really didn't have enough plays to qualify for QBR earlier on because he was splitting time and then got again beat out by Bo Nix, transferred. And when Malik Willis transferred back in the day, they did not have the one-time free transfer rule. So he actually had to sit a year before he could play at Liberty. And that first year, you see he comes in just under the line. What is that dotted line, you ask? It is the average of QBs with a top 12 finish in the NFL season, up in the NFL. So you want to see those guys come in above that line as many times as possible. And unfortunately, Malik Willis does not do it all. In year 4, he's right there behind Matt Corral. And then in year 5, he's below Desmond Ridder and Jack Cohn, which is not great. QBR, though, does factor in the competition that you're playing. So he does take a knock there because Liberty does not play great competition. Let's take a look at the EPA. EPA tells a little bit of a different story here, right? You go look here at year 4 and year 5, he's up near the top. In year 4, only gets beat out by Matt Corral and Carson Strong. And then in year 5, just Kenny Pickett. We all know the season Kenny Pickett just had last year. It was an amazing season. It's why he's getting the Joe Burrow comps. And why is the EPA so much different than the QBR? Because the EPA takes a lot of rushing into account as well. It's expected points per play. So he did a really good job, obviously, in that with the passing and the rushing. Let's take a look at his adjusted yards per. And same thing. He's kind of right there in the middle, right? Like in year 4, he comes in just at the line, a tad bit over, which is good. You know, you'd like to see him come in over at least one of those things. But then again, in year 5 there, he's below Jack Cohn. Some of that, again, I think is just he didn't do a lot of passing. I mean, we just saw, right? Just a little over 2,000 passing yards. There was a lot of running that he did because Liberty truly relied on him to be their entire offense. So let's take a look at him compared to the 2021 class. And realistically, when you look at it on the QBR side, he's sitting right there with Davis Mills on the back end there. So not great, but I don't want that to skew your look on Malik Willis and think, okay, he's going to be not any better than Davis Mills, which, if we're being honest, actually played fairly good for the Texans this past season. You look at his EPA, he was up there with the best of them. I mean, Mac Jones had that ridiculous season. That's kind of like an outlier, I think, what he did with Alabama in the COVID year and going on to win a national championship. But if you look at what Malik Willis was able to do there, I mean, realistically, in his 4th and 5th year, he was right there on par with what Trevor Lawrence did in his 1st and 3rd year. Now, I'm not trying to tell you Malik Willis is Trevor Lawrence, but as you can see, he at least produced at a fairly high level. We know Trevor Lawrence was a very good college quarterback. I think it is cool to see that he at least produced at that level. Last but not least, adjusted yards per, and again, it's kind of the same thing as the QBR. Again, though, does come in over that line, which you like to see in year 4. You'd like to see it earlier, obviously. The earlier, the better. You see Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. Zach Wilson with that amazing COVID season up there at the top. I mean, great year for him. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields kind of grouped together. Overall, does come in over the line in year 4, but then falls back under in year 5, which we already talked about. That's just kind of him compared to the 2021 class. And then let's go to the 2020, where you've got all of these guys. Looking at the let's do QBR here first. Comes in obviously below all these guys, but does, above Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert in year 4, way above Jordan Love. Really, the only guy in that season was Jalen Hurts. I mean, Tua, that would have been Tua's 3rd year. We see what Tua did, obviously, that amazing season there at Alabama. So just to kind of give you guys a look there on that. Let's take a look at his EPA. And I do like that he's up here with the likes of Tua, Justin Herbert, in both seasons. Again, I just want to show you guys kind of how it matches up with previous classes. Now, do I think he's Justin Herbert? I'll be honest. No, I do not. But still, I think it's really cool to compare them class-wise to see that. And then last but not least, I had it up there a minute ago. Now let's take a look at the adjusted yards per. Again, right there with Justin Herbert in year 4, and then kind of falls below the line there in year 5. All right, let's take a look now at the video. I put together some of the things I like and don't like about his game. So we're going to start off with what we like about Malik Willis's game. And a lot of this first part I'm going to show you is his rushing, what he can do with his legs. For the past couple years, he's been comped to Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's Lamar, and I don't love that comp. He's thicker than Lamar. He doesn't have the speed or athleticism of Lamar, but I do think he's a little bit shifty like him, and you get to see that a little bit here on this play. You know, he's not out there looking like Christian McCaffrey with the way he's able to juke, but I do think being able to get away from defenders is a good thing. I think he's closer to Jalen Hurts than necessarily a Lamar Jackson, but I do think he's a little bit better than rusher than Jalen Hurts, so I think that's kind of where that comes in. Again, here, takes off and runs after his first read is not there, and I mean, almost gets it into the end zone, kind of gets by all those defenders. That's going to be big for us at the second level here in the NFL, right, for fantasy. Like, that's a massive gain. That's 6-7 points for you right there. That's a close to a 60, 70-yard rush that he just got you on one play in the NFL. And I do think he's got the speed to run away from most of those guys. I don't think he gets into the end zone as he does it on this play. He likely gets caught, but he's going to be able to eat up chunk plays with his rushing upside. Again, another one here against Syracuse. I mentioned one of the better teams he played last season. Same thing, kind of rolls out here looking for it. And again, you would think most quarterbacks, they're dead to rights right there. He's able to at least get upfield. I do and I don't love that he dropped his shoulder to get the extra tough yards here because you don't want to see him get hurt. You know, Baker Mayfield earlier this year goes to make that tackle on the interception, hurts his shoulder, not the same player all season long. You'd like to see him. He gets positive yards. Just go out of bounds. Don't drop your shoulder take on the defender there, but still just kind of shows you what he can do when he gets in trouble. He can still get you tough yards and get you a positive gain in what looks like a negative situation. Defender had him in the backfield. He was able to kind of stiff arm him, get out of bounds, or not get out of bounds, but get upfield and get you some positive yards. So just one more here, just showing you guys how dynamic he can be in the run game. All right, so here again, he's able to buy time, is able to avoid the tackle in the backfield, and then launches it downfield. Now, granted, the wide receiver gets off, he comes across in motion here, gets outside, clearly gets by the linebacker covering him, which is easy, but still, you've got to get outside the pocket, and he's got to make this throw on the run, which is not easy to do. The one thing I will say that I don't necessarily love about Malik Willis here, and we'll see, and so I will say Sean McAvoy is his quarterback coach. You can follow him on Twitter. I cannot for the life of me remember. I'm trying to find his Twitter handle. We were actually just having a DM discussion the other day. It is at QB Coach McVoy or Ekvoy. God, I just butchers Sean. M, capital M, lowercase c, capital E, lowercase VOY. He talks about how the mechanics here don't really matter for a guy like Malik Willis because of the power he gets on his throws. And I can't necessarily disagree with him. Dude's a quarterback coach, and I do agree with him. But if you watch right here, watch his legs, he does have kind of like a funky delivery where he almost like does it on one foot. And we'll see that again later that I'm going to show you guys. His mechanics are interesting to me, but, you know, Coach McVoy there said that it doesn't really matter. So you see it right here again. Here's another one. It's a good throw, right? Like he throws, he's on the run, gets outside the pocket. He delivers a strike to his wide receiver. It's a nice play, but I just want you guys to watch right here again. So he gets out of the pocket. He sees his wide receiver coming across, right? So he knows he's about to have him because the defenders are crashing down onto Malik Willis. They don't know that wide receiver's, coming open behind him. But watch his legs here. This is what kind of worries me about his mechanics and his throwing style. It's kind of like on one foot, and I get it. There's no easy way to throw off platform, but I just don't love the way that he does that, and he does it in the pocket too. This is just a really good play, though. Nice little zip on that into the corner of the end zone for a big touchdown. And again, just shows that he can throw on the run, he can get out of the pocket. They did that a lot, which I also think it can be a negative. We'll talk a little bit about that here when we see some of the things I don't like about his game. Here is I believe a deep pass to him. I like this pass here, not necessarily a deep pass, more to the intermediate area here, but I like this because there's really, in my opinion, a very good layered throw here because you see this. I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. Like, You got two defenders there. There's really only one spot, in my opinion, he could put that for his wide receiver, and he does. And that's a great throw. Puts it up high for his wide receiver. I like that throw. Malik Willis shows spurts of really good accuracy and throws. This one I wanted to put in here to show he's got a absolute rocket attached to his arm. Like, he has very good arm strength. It's one of the things that graded out the highest for me on Malik Willis. But I want to show you this again. And again, Coach, I'm going to call him Coach Sean because I feel like I'm butchering his last name, and that's messed up because I really respect him. Watch the way he passes here. Again, so when you're passing for accuracy, that comes from the shoulder and the elbow, but your power comes from your hips and your legs, and you want him to keep that back foot down and drive, right? He doesn't do that, but he doesn't really lose any power. Like, if you watch his back foot there, it comes really high off the ground. You don't want to see that. But as Coach Sean has talked about, like, he doesn't lose any power on his throw, so it's not necessarily a bad thing for Malik Willis. So I can't even really knock him for that too much because he does have, like, a cannon. And right there, too, like, the wide receiver doesn't catch that. That's a really nice throw. Plenty of zip on that to the outside, leads his wide receiver. It hits his wide receiver in the hands. Like, that's a catch as a wide receiver you've got to make. Here is one of those deep passes, and again, we're going to get a look at it from the other angle here. He does the thing with the 1 foot, which I don't love. But the fact that he was able to do this, moving sideways off 1 foot, I mean, just look at that. That's like you look at that and you're like, there's no way this is going to be a completion or even a positive play, right? He's moving sideways and just launches it up there. And I think, again, just shows how good he is deep ball. I mean, that's a great throw. It's a great throw. And if he can harness that more often, you can see the upside of what Malik Willis has. This throw right here, I think, is why he is going to be drafted likely in the first round. Team might trade up for him and take him because this is an NFL throw. And if he can consistently do this on Sundays, Malik Willis is going to be a much better than what I graded him out to be. And I just graded him based purely on what I've seen here. That's nothing to do with what I expect he can do in the NFL. But just watch this. And I wish you could get a little bit of a better angle here. But when he throws this, like, look at that. There are 3 defenders around this wide receiver. He puts enough zip on it and layers this perfectly to where, I mean, hits his wide receiver perfectly right there in the corner. Now, he drops it, and it doesn't count as a touchdown, but Malik Willis did nothing wrong on that play. So when you look at the stats, this is, oh, look at that. His completion percentage is down, and that's another, bad throw. No, that was a great throw. A great throw, an NFL throw. Again, I just want you guys to look at this. When he lets this go, I mean, look at the defenders around this wide receiver. You can see the ball right above here. I don't have my green screen up, but you look at this goalpost, you can see the ball right above the middle defender here. And I mean, it's just perfect amount of perfectly layered in there, perfect zip, perfect everything. It's a great, great throw. That is an NFL throw by Malik Willis. All right, so we've got some of the Ole Miss stuff here. And on this one, I just want to show you that he does somewhat at times go through progressions, but you don't see a lot of it. And I don't necessarily want to knock him too much for that because I don't know if that's an offense thing. Like, maybe that's something Liberty doesn't ask him to do. Good zip on his throw, though. Kind of does lock onto his receiver right there. But that's one of the things that I just don't see enough of. And again, I can't even say that that's him. Again, just another great throw there. Zip all the way across the field, hitting his wide receiver there. I mean, his wide receiver had to stop for it, but still, I mean, look, he's on the opposite hash mark when he makes this throw. I mean, this is just a great throw by Malik Willis. Excuse me. Right there, 2 defenders coming in. Like, you've got to make that throw perfect timing, and it is. Anyways, he doesn't do enough of the going through progressions, but that may just be Liberty's offense, so I don't want to knock him too much for that. And I'm not in Liberty's offense. I'm not a head coach. I'm not an offensive coordinator, so I don't know that he's not making the right reads, but this is a bad one for me right here. Let's rewind this just a little bit. So his wide receiver is, I mean, completely covered by this guy. Now, maybe he just doesn't see it. Regardless, I think maybe if he leads the wide receiver a little bit over toward the end zone, he probably gets that as a touchdown, or at least it's not an interception. Whether he doesn't see, the safety coming over, I don't know, but this is just a bad read here by Malik Willis, and he's locked on the whole time. So I don't know if that's why he doesn't see the defender, because he's locked onto that side of the field the entire time, but that's a bad play by Malik Willis, and we see a lot of that, unfortunately. Same thing here. This is where he misses the deep ball. Happens. I throw it in there. We talked about it with Sam Howell and Matt Corral. Rarely did they miss those guys deep. Desmond Ridder did. Malik Willis doesn't do it a lot, but I did want to throw it in there. I mean, he had plenty of time in the pocket all day to throw, and I think some of that may have been the mechanics put too much on it there. Here we go again, same thing. Rushes out into the outside and ends up getting sacked, and this is the one thing I don't like, and I do believe this is more Liberty than Malik Willis. They do a lot of these plays where they get the pocket moving and get him outside. He needs to get rid of that, whether it's an incompletion or not. That happens a lot with Malik Willis, where he tries to do a little bit too much. I put one of the cons is like too much hero ball there, but they do this stuff too much where they roll the pocket out. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that enough in the NFL, so that does worry me, just kind of the system that he's in college at Liberty. This here... So this is the final play that I have on Malik Willis's tape, and it's a good play, obviously. One, a lot of people talk about and tweet about this is why he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. The one thing I'll say here, and this is a great play. Like, I don't want to knock this because Malik Willis is a great player, and this is a really fun play. I don't think this happens in the NFL. Very rarely do you see players being able to run around like this and do this. Like, we see it from Patrick Mahomes, and everybody just expects that that's what's going to happen at the next level. In my opinion, that's just not true. There's a reason we've only seen one Patrick Mahomes do it in the NFL. Now, I do think Malik Willis can do stuff like that, but I wanted to show, like, a lot of people talk about that's why Malik Willis is so great. Let's pump the brakes just a little bit on that because I don't know if that happens all the time in the NFL. Let's take a look at his grades here really quick. And we're going to start with his pros and cons first. So let's pull this up here. Pros. He's got the mobility, right? We saw it. Rocket arm. He's definitely a threat with his legs. He can challenge all three levels of the field and easily. Imagine if he's able to improve his mechanics even just a little bit, keep that back foot down. He's going to be able to toss it all over the field. But the cons, a little bit too much hero ball, and some of that, again, I do think is Liberty's offense, so I can't put all of that on Malik Willis, and I've tried to factor that in a little bit for me when I gave his grade, but I just think there's a little bit of that. It's good, as I put on here, it's good and bad. It's good because he makes some amazing plays, like the last play that we saw on that film, but then there also comes the bad ones where he gets sacked or he throws an interception. Decision-making. Again, I mentioned it earlier, I don't necessarily want to classify him as a gunslinger, but I do think that there's a lot of windows that he doesn't think are too tight or is not a throw he can't make, and he tries and he shouldn't. Mechanics. Again, I'm going to lean on Coach Sean here. He is his quarterback coach. He doesn't think there's a big issue with his mechanics. I am nobody when it comes to challenging a quarterback coach, and that I don't necessarily love his mechanics, but I will admit that it works for him for the most part in the plays he's able to make. If he could improve them, I think it would be even better for him. And then again, just the interesting release which goes into the mechanics with what he does with his foot. So let's take a look at the grade, and I feel like this is going to look bad. It's a 75.7. I got his accuracy at a 3.4, arm strength at a 4.3, and I might raise that up a little bit. I've been looking a little bit more at a couple of the other players, and I feel like his arm strength could probably go up to a 4.5. So this isn't final. I will post on Twitter when all my grades are completely final, but this is kind of like my last run-through on these guys before I take a little bit deeper dive into a couple of the other things, but pocket manipulation and poise, I think he's got a 3.6 and 3.7. Again, these are graded on categories of 5, which gives him a 3.65. Legs, though, mechanics, 3.6. Mobility, 4.3. And then decision-making and progressions. Again, the progressions, that one's kind of tough for me to grade because we just don't see a lot of it. And again, I think some of that is Liberty's offense, but I still kind of have to knock him for it. That doesn't mean he can't do it. So that's one thing that you've got to kind of scout with projection, right? You've got to scout and look at it and be like, okay, well, can he do it at the NFL? Probably. Comes in with a 75.7 for me, which just barely crosses the grade 2 tier. My grades are 100 to 88 are tier 1, and that is anybody who I expect to be a franchise quarterback and possible high-end fantasy asset. That's QB 1 to 15. Tier 2 is an 87 to 75. That is QBs I expect like in the 15 to 24 range. Tier 3, 74 to 65. Tier 4, 64 and lower. Those guys I don't ever even think really make the NFL. This is not me telling you that Malik Willis is a tier 2 quarterback, as in like he can only be like a tier 2 fantasy quarterback. He's only going to be right around that, 24 to 15 range. Malik Willis is the one guy in this draft class that I do think can be a QB1, but he has things to work on, and that's what I'm grading him purely on what he's done in college, not what I think he can do in the NFL. I think he can be really good. He can be the best in this class. He's got the tools. He's got the sexiness, the athleticism to do anything at the NFL level, but I do think he needs to go to a good place, be kind of coached up a little bit, probably sit for at least half a year to kind of learn a little bit more, because I do worry about what Liberty's offense, if he can do some of that stuff at the NFL. We have seen NFL kind of putting in more college concepts, but I'm worried about that at the NFL level. But overall, I think Malik Willis is a very good quarterback. I'm excited to see what he does at the NFL level. All right, that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for checking this video out. Again, please, if you don't mind, give me a like. Mention in the comments what you think about Malik Willis. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon. We've got a ton more content coming for you guys. Next week's video will be on Kenny Pickett. So we've got 2 more quarterbacks before we move on to the running back class. Again, thank you guys so much for checking out the Malik Willis rookie profile video.